Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sonic Comic Chaos. I'm your host, Silver1, and joining me as always is my co-host Ian Waffles. Um, Ian, would you like to tell the audience why we're here today?
Well, if you guys remember, back during one of our older videos from last year, we talked about Sonic Endgame, and Ace at the time horribly thought that was the best issue of Archie Sonic up to that point that he had read. But I needed to show him the true king, the king of crunch, if you will. And so we are now reading Knuckles the Echidna to rectify that mistake, so that the Silver Ace can finally see the true peaks of pre-Flynn Archie Sonic.
Yeah, audience, whatever clickbaity thumbnail with like the live action Knuckles and red arrows that I put that said the Knuckles spinoff sucks. It's not real. We're talking about the comic book. It's not. We're not talking about the show. We didn't get the show early somehow. I fooled you. You feel fooled. Anyway. Um. Yeah, this sucks. Um.
Ken.
Ian, is this because okay, audience, little bit of backstory. We've talked about this for a while about like, oh, when the Knuckles show comes out, we should go back and talk about the Knuckles series. And I was like, oh, the first couple issues of the Knuckles series, that won't be too bad, right? It'll probably just be him like meeting the Chaotix and palling around, right? But then Ian was like, hey, so there is a Knuckles miniseries that I assume is at least something like that. Let's not talk about that one. Let's talk about the Knuckles ongoing.
Uh-huh.
And Ian, is this payback for Groundhog Day?
It's payback for a lot of things. You don't understand how much baggage and a list I've got. So we've got a lot of things to go through.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk to the best of my ability about the first 6 issues of Knuckles the Echidna. This sucks. Like this.
What?
Yes. Like,
oh, it does.
I okay, we'll get into it. Ian and Ace, read your comments. I didn't curate any. You all know the drill by now. I'm gonna go in, and then future me is gonna be mad at past me because he's gonna have to edit this. It's gonna be a whole fucking thing. You all know. Anyway, from a regular, thank you, Waffles, for making me appreciate the fucking evil version of Sonic the Hedgehog so much more. I assume he's talking about Scourge. Well, we don't know if he's thanking you. He could just be thanking like the breakfast food of Waffles.
That's true.
Yeah, but okay. Hot take: out of all the besyruped breakfast foods, which are like waffles and pancakes and French toast is the best one.
Fun fact: I've never had waffles, so I don't even know what they taste like.
Wait, a what?
Yeah.
Where does your screen name come from?
It comes from just being like some amalgamation of like my last name and just being like, waffles. There you go.
Wow.
That's been my life has been a lie for most people.
You learn new Ian lore, guys. I didn't know
Every
this.
Day.
Alex Vlad, they said I don't like bad guy Fiona. And I think that's interesting because like I think at first at least you're not supposed to. Like I think the fact that her heel turn like doesn't feel good is like a good thing.
Yeah, I mean she literally slaps tails.
Yeah.
I mean I would guess they might be coming from the idea of they don't like the idea of making her a villain because I mean like let's say for example a character like I don't know, let's say Antoine actually was a villain. Like it's not evil Antoine. Over the time skip, he just like became a villain. Now he's going to be a dick, right? Like I probably wouldn't like that, you know? Like you'd have to make a really, really good story to make me care. Because I really like Antoine and his relationship with like Bunny and all these other things. So to throw that away, you'd be trading away something. But this is where I don't understand. Like this is where I would want more elaboration because I just don't understand people who like pre-evil Fiona. Not in the idea of like liking her vibe or whatever, but like what are you losing by her becoming a bad guy? Is it literally just that she's not a good guy? Because she doesn't really have many character traits.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is I think it's a testament to how good Flynn and Yardley were able to characterize her at the beginning of their run. That in that short amount of time, it does make her like fall to evil feel more impactful.
Yeah. Well, and it also makes it clear that it's not even really like, oh, she's evil. It's that she's like trying to lash out at the world because she's afraid of like getting hurt. And so by doing that, she is clinging on to a person like Scourge, who doesn't really care who she used to be and doesn't really care that, she can be a little devious at time or whatever. It's a defense mechanism rather than just like, oh, she's evil. And so the reason she leans into that is because that's the way she feels like she has control over her life, is to just, you know what, if the world thinks I'm a bad guy, then fine, I'm a bad guy. I'm just going to enjoy my life and do what's best for me because my life has sucked up to this point. So it makes it like really, really like human and stuff. So to that person who wrote that comment, if you could elaborate like in the comments here, I would love to read it because I would really like to learn why someone would like feel there was more potential from like a good Fiona. So yeah, please share if you have any. And next comment.
Yeah, and then from Archie Sonic
Flan.
Shut up, Ian. Then from Archie Sonic fan, please read this comment. No. All right, so going on to Knuckles the Echidna number. I'm kidding. So I vastly prefer Scourge's version of the Killing Joke scene to the original. Batman and the Joker have nothing in common, but just felt like the cliche villain line, you and I aren't so different. But Sonic and Scourge are technically the same person. There's so much to pick apart with it. They are the same guy, just two sides of the same coin. One chose to use his powers for good and is just cocky, while the other used his powers to conquer and fuel his endless ego. I think the scenes are... I mean, Ian, have you ever read / watched The Killing Joke?
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully not watched, because that animated movie is garbaggio.
I've read it.
Yeah, it's a good story. Joker in that story, his whole idea is not so much that he and Batman are the same, but that he and everyone are the same.
Everyone could be the Joker.
Yeah, everyone is one bad day away from being the Joker. Whereas in this, it takes on a whole new context where they are literally, yeah, like you said, Archie Sonic fan, they are literally the same person. So like, it is showing that it's entirely possible for him to become that because he is that. And obviously you get into the complications of like anti-Mobius and like they had different upbringings and all that fun jive. But
it's thematically connected in that way, I would say.
Yes, and also it's interesting because we see later down the line how that moment affects both of them. Because from what I recall, Scourge does call back to that line in Dark Mirror. Is it called Dark Mirror?
He does.
Yeah, and Sonic calls back to it much later.
Much later.
Yeah. So yeah, well, okay, that's enough comments for today. All right, It's time for Knuckles the Echidna number 1, aka Knuckles the Dark Legion. So okay, so the last miniseries is Sonic's friendly nemesis Knuckles, right? Now I didn't read that. Yeah. I can gather enough of what happened. He met his dad, some shit went down, whatever. And then this one, they're like Knuckles the Dark Legion, number 1, number 2, number 3. And then they were just like, but we'll just keep going with the numbering. But we'll call the book Knuckles the Echidna.
Yeah.
So were these just like, was there just so much demand where there's like, we need to keep this going? Like these books are flying off the shelves.
Absolutely. Because like that's the thing I was going to get into is like the Knuckles the Echidna comic, I think is like terrible as like a story to read, to like be like, all right, tell me a story, get me invested, for a lot of reasons that we'll get into. But as like a like piece of Sonic history, like people always talk about like the weirdness that Ken did in like the main comics and just with Knuckles in general. But like let's like peel all that back and like just appreciate the idea that like it wasn't just that like Ken was weird and that like, oh, Sega just didn't notice and Archie didn't care. Knuckles' weirdness, the Ken Pender stuff, it got a spin-off series, a 32-issue spin-off series. That's insane. Like some superhero comics for like fan favorite characters don't go that long, and so like the idea that like this was just like Ken's little weird project that nobody cared about, that's just what's so fascinating, is like clearly people did care about this. Like they wanted to learn about Knuckles' history. They were interested in like all this weird Echidna lore. And I'm sure like if you were a kid reading this would feel really interesting. Kind of like I feel like reading this comic as a kid would be like when you play a video game that has really jank controls, but because you're a kid, you have all the time in the world to like get used to it, right? And so if you're a kid and you're reading this and you're confused, you don't think, oh, that's because the comic is bad at conveying this. You think it's just so like complicated that I need to reread it and figure out what's going on. And that creates investment. So like, I just think the fact that this exists is just so fascinating.
Yeah, although part of me wonders, like, if you're a kid, right, and you pick up Knuckles the Dark Legion #1, it's got a cool cover, Knuckles is on it, you played as Knuckles in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and you're like, whoa, Knuckles, that's cool, and you pick this up, and the first thing you're greeted with is a wall of text, which has the quote, let me find the quote, because there was a quote where I was like, oh, Ken, like, while many have attempted to chronicle their yesterdays in a manner favorable to them, true historians find it often best to liken history to a prism, an object with numerous points of view, in order to see the whole picture.
I feel like if you read that as a kid, you're like, dude, adults are so fucking cool. Knuckles is so fucking cool. Like, yeah, it's such nonsense. And he does this for like the main series too. But yeah, since his encounter with a malevolent ancestor calling himself Enerjack, Knuckles has sought to learn more of his heritage in order to better understand his present life and to be better prepared for the future. Like, it's just so self-serious. And I kind of love it, but I also hate it because, oh my gosh, there's so much fucking text.
Yeah, it's let's just hop into it. So,
sorry, one last thing about the thing. The literal title of this isn't just Knuckles the Dark Legion. It is Because You Demanded It from the pages of Sonic, Knuckles the Dark Legion. So they were demanding it. And of course, on the first page, what do we get? We get Knuckles in a bath suit, or in a what is it? In a
bathrobe.
A bathrobe. There you go. He leaves Knuckles in a bathrobe.
Yeah. Well, but this isn't Knuckles, Ian. Who is this?
It's Locke, Knuckles' cool dad.
So again, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a child reading this, right? Because it's #1, right? Yeah, it's not #4. It's not like, oh, the Knuckles Sonic's friendly nemesis #4. It is Knuckles the Dark Legion #1. And so you open this, and the first thing you see is Knuckles with a beard in a bathrobe in the Batcave.
Yeah, and he's like, because I bet you a kid reading this probably doesn't realize that that's not Knuckles, because they would just look and be like, oh my gosh, it's Knuckles, oh whoa, and it's like, wait, Knuckles is here now, and wait, why is Knuckles in the background with Knuckles? What's going on?
Oh, I mean, I definitely had those as a kid. There were definitely times as a kid where I was reading like Spider-Man comics, and there was just like other like brown-haired guys, and I was like, is that Peter Parker?
Is that Peter?
So, like, there's no way there are kids who didn't just go like, what happened to Knuckles?
Yeah, what happened to Knuckles? Yeah.
Yeah, but gosh. So he's in the Batcave and he's looking at all these screens, and what is showing up at the Dark Legion? And so, okay, Ian. So Knuckles met his dad in the last miniseries?
No.
Wait, what?
Knuckles thinks his dad is dead, that he like killed himself.
But he says, like, I saw my father. Does he not say that at some point in this?
So what happened is that while Knuckles was in the desert, he was gonna die of like thirst, and so Locke was like, well, I gotta help my boy out. So he pushed like a lever and created like an oasis in the desert, and then he appeared like Mufasa, and he was like, Knuckles, you must continue on this quest, son, just like I have trained you. He's like, Dad, and then it keeps moving. So so he had lots of stuff happened.
By the way, Ace's question of the day, if you could give another Sonic character their own comic, who would you give? It's whatever. It's Silver for me, obviously. Unpredictable. Ian, what about you? Obviously, it's Knuckles for you, right? You want more of this?
No. Have a mini-series about Mina Mongoose and her traveling around doing concerts. It would be cute.
Oh, that'd be fun. Actually, you know what? Silver, but have him team up with the Chaotix. He's already friends with SBO. Just have like the 4 of them go on like a time travel road trip. That'd be the coolest thing ever.
And Sleuth Doggy Dog, because it
and Sleuth Doggy Dog, yes. Anyway, back to the comic. So then we cut to actual Knuckles, and okay. So I've said in the past that I read Archimedes with Jiminy Cricket's voice, and that usually works out fine because he's not in a lot of the Sonic comics. But when he is one of the main characters and he's constantly talking, like all the characters in this are constantly talking,
Yes.
you realize that the voice doesn't really fit. but at this point, my brain has just locked it in that he's Jiminy Cricket. So he's saying all these things of like his father, I shared a telepathic. That's Mickey Mouse. I can't do Jiminy Cricket, but like you get the idea. Like,
Like his father, Mickey Mouse, mate.
is he Australian?
Yeah, of course he's Australian. Look at him.
I mean, I guess.
He's literally like the crocodile hunter or whatever. He's got the stupid fucking hat.
Oh no. Anyway, so yeah, Knuckles, he's chilling on a rock with his like aunt uncle. That sounded weird when I said it like that. Anyway, and he's like, and Archimedes is like, oh no, what's going on? I gotta warn Knuckles, but Knuckles, oh no! And then we cut to the past. Ian, what the fuck's happening here?
Okay, so here's the thing. So the Knuckles lore in these comics is so horribly explained because what they will do is it'll be like one page, past, second page, Knuckles dicking around, next page, past, and they just do this back and forth, and so you never know what's happening. And it doesn't help that they're being like, oh, here's this character named Steppenwolf and Menacur, and they all look the same. So
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, their names are all ridiculous too. Isn't there one called like Kragon or something?
Yeah, Kragok, who is just Knuckles but with a claw hand.
Well, okay, let's get something out of the way right now. They're all just Knuckles, but blank.
But blank. So what happened is that, as we learned in the Enerjack story and in a few of the Beast stories, the Dimitri, who is like Knuckles' like great grand uncle person, he basically he was like, man, I'm gonna try to lower the floating island so that we can bring it back down to Earth. And the council was like, no, we're gonna keep floating. And he's like, that's stupid. So he went and grabbed the Chaos Siphon and absorbed all the energy of the Chaos Emeralds because he's gotten mad with power. And he turned into Enerjack, which is like this demigod or whatever. And then he got crushed under a mountain. So the story we now follow is after he was crushed under the mountain, where his son Menacur is like, no, my dad's dead. And so he's like, you know what? My dad came to me in a vision, and he wants me to bring back technology because then Dimitri's brother Edmund, who is the first Guardian's dad, he's like, we're going to get rid of all technology. Give me your Sega Genesis, literally. And they go house to house, and they're like taking everyone's technology because they're afraid. And there are people who don't want that because that's pretty reasonable. And they decide, you know what? We're going to become a cult, and we're going to fucking kill those people. And so now there's a civil war going on between the people who want to keep technology and feel like outsiders, and then Knuckles' ancestor, like his great-grandfather or whatever, great-great-great-grandfather, who was like, no, we have to like protect the democracy, and we all voted for no technology, and these guys are like turned to a little army. And so you know how we're going to make sure they don't use technology? We're going to create a secret technological base where we can spy on literally every single person so they don't use technology. And they're like, genius. And so then they confront those guys, and then they go, hey, don't use technology. And then someone shoots at him. He goes, you know what? Fuck all of you. You're going to hell. And he sends them all to hell. And then they send them to the Twilight Zone. And they're like, well, hopefully they don't come back. And now in the modern day, they have come back, and they're fucking around with Knuckles, and Knuckles has to deal with that. Now, that is already kind of complex. Now imagine learning that by the comic basically just doing it page by page, swapping between the two. And also you have to figure out all the names, and also you have to figure out the visuals.
Is the Twilight Cage, or is it Twilight Cage or Twilight Zone?
It's the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, the Twilight Cage is Sonic the Dark Brotherhood. All right, so
yeah, which is copied off of that.
Yeah. So is hold on. Okay. So is the dark okay. So we learned this that the Echidnas and the Dingoes. So the Dingoes. So instead of chaos in this, it was Dingo nukes. The Dingoes nuked the island, and they're like, "Fuck, we gotta get the hell out of here." And so they all went and fucked off to another zone. Is that different from the Twilight Zone?
Yes.
Because
the way zones work in the Sonic comic is that, for example, like during Supersonic versus Hyper Knuckles, they are fighting next to like the Lake of Rings, and where you find rings and Chaos Emeralds is either before they were like a lot of them were underground, and then over time that went away, and basically like they started creating like little pocket zones. So like during the Supersonic versus Hyper Knuckles thing, they find under a tree, they find an alternate reality where there's just like a bunch of like rings and Chaos Emeralds, and then they fight in there. So in this world, like you can have multiple pocket dimensions in one main dimension. And so what they do is they split the echidnas and the dingoes into separate pocket dimensions, which is not the pocket dimension of the Twilight Zone. That is a separate pocket dimension.
So wait, are we working on? So wait, we're on 3 pocket dimensions now.
Yes, we're up to 3.
Audience, can you tell why I hated this? So okay, so at the end of this comic, because again, audience, I cannot stress enough, I have no idea what happens in the last issue of this. You know what? We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay. Well, back to the story. So yeah. So there, I will say, okay, to give the book some credit, they do a cool thing where they'll have like one of the Knuckles ancestors or just an old echidna. I can't tell which one is actually related to Knuckles. Will be like doing a pose in the past, and we'll cut to the present, and Knuckles will also be doing that pose.
Yeah.
So there's a guy like angrily storming out of the Senate or whatever this is in the past, and in the present, Knuckles is like angrily storming to see like what the Dark Brotherhood are doing. Dark Legion. Fuck.
Yeah, the Dark Legion. And then well, and there's also like the art just does look cool. Like regardless of like the echidnas all looking the same, like the way like the everything looks, I just think looks really neat, and like some of the poses are really dynamic. The paneling's nothing like to write home about, but it's neat enough that you can like follow what's going on, like in a like not even like a condescending way, but like no, like I can tell where everything is, what's going on. And I just really like a lot of the lighting too. It just sucks that all the echidnas, like you meet these guys and they're just like, yeah, this is Dimitri, Edmund, Menneker, Kragok, all these people. You care, and you're like, no, you have to. You can just say care. Like there's this scene right here where they're like, oh, I see Mr. Arunda is having a fit over the latest referendum. I'm just grateful the majority is going along with this policy peacefully. Thanks for making my job easy, Menneker. And you're like, Menneker, okay, who was that again? It's like, oh, right. After we went through a scene where we like cut to Knuckles, before that, there was a part where they just said, sorry, Menneker, your dad died. And that's the one time they mentioned his name. So then you're like, was that Dimitri's son? And it's so bad.
It's really bad. But yeah, so it's the Dark Legion. I'm gonna be fighting the urge to say Dark Brotherhood this entire time now. I've ruined my brain. They have another props. I'll give it the designs for the Dark
2 seconds later.
The Dark Legion. And their robots are all pretty cool. They got fun triangle faces.
Well, I also like their like just flying saucers. Like it's such a simple idea, but I just think it's like really unique to them, and I like that going forward in the series, like the Freedom Fighters start using them too, like because they like steal their tech and they like start using them in stories. Because like I mean they literally used them during the Eggman Empire arc to like get to Mobotropolis. So it's just kind of cool that like their influence like persists throughout the story.
Yeah. Also, yeah, there he is. He's literally taking his Sega Genesis. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't joking.
I remember the VCR because they specifically call out the VCR because there's a guy who's like his wife. He's like, I'm not gonna give you my technology, and then the wife is like giving away all the technology. He's
I'm
like,
tired of foosball night.
Yeah. So is it like okay? So here's my question: what is foosball in Echidna society? Is it people playing on like normal foosball tables? Or is it like that episode of Phineas and Ferb where they have like actual sized foosball where it's like people on the poles and they get like they're like flung around and like knocking the ball? You know what I'm saying?
Well, Marta's not going to let us know now.
But yeah, and so also I will say we don't see a lot of women in this, but the women we do see, the book does not have the highest opinion of them.
Well, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it, but this is the first example. Yeah. So then Archimedes, he takes down a robot, and we get the first instance of Knuckles' famous catchphrase, which is "It's crunch time." And then Archimedes literally has to go, "Hey, is that your catchphrase? It sounds so you."
Yeah.
I hate everything. Anyway. Yeah, and so then we see Glowy Eye McGee is like, go get Knuckles. Then we get back to the past again. The Dark Legion have Cyclops is leading them. He's like, this is stupid. We want to keep our technology. And then Eyebrows McGee is like, he's spying on them. He gets shot at. And then they cut back to the present where Knuckles meets up with the Chaotix. And okay, it's interesting seeing the Chaotix and the ways in which they like their personalities are different, but also in the ways that they're like kind of similar. You know, like Vector is still like the big goofy guy. SBO is still like mostly serious. Charmy is something.
Just chilling, I guess.
Yeah, and I the biggest difference is that like Mighty is just like one of the guys. Like he's just one of
the.
I
really like.
Oh yeah, it's great. I really like Archie's like Chaotix.
Well, because it just like something. So first of all, just as a general thing, despite like my complaints with like this story, I think the Chaotix are the best part. Because I just think they have such stupid lines just consistently that are like just really funny. Like they'll learn resistance is futile. What was that? I don't see anything. Are you guys nuts? There's nobody there. Yep, that's me, Mr. Nobody. Hasta la vista, you losers. And he jumps off and they explode. Like,
yeah.
Or then you have like Mighty and he grabs one of the guys and he goes, I'm throwing out the garbage, Knuckles, but it just keeps piling up. And he's like bowling ball, like using them as bowling pins.
Yeah.
He's just stupid.
There's also one part of this where at some point Archimedes is like, Knuckles, your hearing is too good. And I just put in my notes, he doesn't have ears.
They're hidden under his dreadlocks.
I guess. But yeah, I don't know. At some point my notes I wrote, I thought this was about Knuckles. It's not, but yeah, so yeah, they fight off the Dark Legion fellas. These fucking names. Who's this guy? Who's the bushy eyebrows guy?
Wait, what's the scene?
He's in on the UFO. He's like, fight fire with fire, I always say.
Oh yeah, that is Steppenwolf.
Okay.
He is Edmund's son, who is the first Guardian.
Yeah, which is why when we see Knuckles' descendant who trains Silver, his name is Edmund.
His name is Edmund. There you go. That's how you can remember it. A good story connecting to the bad story.
Yep. But yeah, so then the Dark Legion are so they get the Chaotix, and then we get the reveal of Kragok. His name is Kragok.
He sure is Knuckles with a scary eye.
Hey, and a scary arm.
Yeah, he does look pretty cool, but it's very funny.
It's very funny. And then we get a map of the floating island, which I actually didn't look at this when I was first reading this. Let's zoom in. Is there anything interesting here? We get the
marble, not that I can remember.
The marble garden, the lava reef. Oh, this is just zones from the game, isn't it? But we have the former site of Echidnapolis. There's Lake Nessie, which is, I guess, because it's shaped vaguely like the Loch Ness Monster. What? We can look at that later. Maybe we'll circle back to that in our Sonic Encyclopedia episode. But anyway, oh god, we're already a half hour in. Okay, audience, I want you all, if you haven't been reading along, which if you haven't, I don't blame you, go look at the cover for Knuckles the Dark Legion #2, because it is literally Knuckles in the background fading away as two who gives a fuck echidnas are in the foreground. Well, no, not who gives a fuck. I know who gives a fuck. It's Ken Penders are in the foreground. Like, it's the book is not being deceitful about who this is about.
Yeah, well, and it's just so funny too, because like, again, if you're a kid, you might look at it and be like just like at a glance, like, Knuckles is dead. But wait, why is Knuckles watch? And there's Knuckles. Oh, hi, SBO.
It's Knuckles, and Knuckles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Dark Legions. Okay, is it like the lower ranking Dark Legion guys? They have this weird like T thing on their faces because they look different from last issue.
I think it's just an aesthetic choice, like just because like later they it seems to get bigger, but I can't tell. I do like this giant. I do, again, the art is like actually very good because I love this first spread because like it feels really big. Like, oh my gosh, like there's like a whole army here. There's like all these flying saucers everywhere. Like it feels really cool.
Yeah. So,
and also there's also in the bottom right there is a goon robot that has a Kiss the Cook outfit, and it's passing out bacon and eggs to everybody.
That is adorable. Okay, I think it is maybe the lower ranking guys are those guys, because on the right of the splash page you can see these guys look like the other guys with like their eyes are
Oh,
showing.
okay. Cool.
Yeah, so Knuckles, the Chaotix are like tied up to like a tree or whatever, and then Knuckles gets led into this tent where Kragok is sitting under the Sega Saturn logo, which I only just now noticed. That's fun. And he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And and he's like, "Take Knuckles' restraints off," because Knuckles complains that he can't sit because his hands are bound behind him. And he's like, "All right, take his restraints off." And then we cut back to Jiminy Cricket Society, and he's like, "I'm gonna go find someone, Knuckles with glasses."
Edmund. Get it
Edmund.
right.
Okay, I'm sorry, but and he's like, "Your son's in trouble. We have to go." And he's like, "Okay," and he rides off on a horse, which that's just a normal horse. They just have normal
No, that's
horses.
a pasha.
It's a what?
A pasha.
What's a pasha?
That's what they're called later. One
It just
time.
looks like a horse.
And I only know this because at one point when Eggman goes insane, he says, "I want to ride the pasha," and I had no idea what that was, so I looked it up, and in like one story, like Julie sees riding on one, she's like, "This is a pasha." So there you go.
Okay, but so then we come back to the present, and Knuckles, after they loosen his restraints, he tries to beat up Kragok, and then they just beat him savagely
With guns.
they just all beat the shit out of him. But so then Kragok socks someone with his metal arm, and he's like, "All right, fellas, kill him." Well, no, what they say is, he's like, Kragok is like, "Where's the Chaos Chamber?" And Knuckles goes, "Beats me." And he's like, "I'll do as you suggest. Beat him." And then there's a cartoony smoke cloud where they're all fighting, and then Knuckles beats them all, and he steals one of their uniforms.
He says, "It's crunch time."
You're right, silly me. And boy, do I mean crunch.
And then I do like this line. I do think it's funny, which he goes, "Good thing we echidnas are all roughly the same size." Great to think how I'd pull this off if we weren't.
Which this will be important later, folks.
Yeah, by the way, it's really cool that we get to see what the Dark Legion actually look like, where they're like cyborg people underneath.
Yeah, that is cool. Anyway, yeah, and so then Steppenwolf's dad dies. Yes,
Yeah, Edmund.
Yeah, Edmund dies, and Jiminy Cricket shows up. Jiminy Cricket the first is like, "Hey, you want to do some shit?" He's like, "All right." And so let me get back to the present, and Knuckles frees them all. And okay, I want you all to remember this, audience. Knuckles says, "It's a good thing that we echidnas are all roughly the same size, because that's the only way I can fit in this uniform." So
And
anyway,
then-
hey, Chaotix, my friends, could you just like put on these uniforms so we can sneak in?
And they say, "Yep."
So yeah, yep. So anyway, then we get back to the Batcave, and Archimedes shows up, and we have an intruder in the Batcave. Who could it be other than Aether? Who is this?
So Aether is from the Tails miniseries, where he shows up and he's like, "Tails, you're the chosen one, bro." And he goes, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." And then he leaves. So this is actually not a Ken Penders character. This is a Mike Gallagher character. And so, obviously Ken can use him, so he put him in here. And so he is one of Knuckles' many grandfathers.
Awesome.
And he basically just shows up to go boogly woogly, and then he leaves.
Well, that's the thing, right? He shows up and he's like, "Hey, I got a god with me," and then he leaves.
And then they're like, I wonder if that means something bad.
Yeah, like the Asian walkers just pop in, and he's like, well, I don't know. Anyway, so
he just kind of poses, and he's like, "Bro, you ever met God before? Bye."
Yep. And so yeah, then we get another flashback to Steppenwolf, and he's doing all the Guardian training, and he goes and he gets his power from the Chaos Emerald. I'm sorry, not the Master Emerald. And so yeah, is that what we're supposed to gain from this? Is that it's like he goes and he absorbs the Chaos Emerald power, and then he can fly?
Yeah, basically, like, so in the world of Archie Sonic, and this gets clarified more and more. So you know how there's the Force? Well, Ken Penders was like, "What if we have the Chaos Force?" And that's literally what it's called. Like, it's called the Chaos Force. And so it's basically just that, like, in the world of Archie Sonic, Chaos Emeralds and rings and magic, it's all tied to the Chaos Force. And so what the Guardians are doing is they're tapping into that via, like, the Emerald, which is, like, helping them, like, tap into it easier. And obviously, from what we know of Knuckles, Knuckles is literally a living Chaos Emerald, so he can tap into it naturally. Shadow is also like that, where like he can just tap into Chaos Force like without using Chaos Emeralds. So this is just kind of establishing that like the Guardians are tied to the Emerald, and how like their energy, they can channel its energy through it.
They're like the Skywalkers, you see.
Indeed, but
Yeah.
they're the Knuckles.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this when I was reading this earlier. Does Knuckles have a last name?
No.
Because I know the ladies are all like Lorelei and Julie Sue and Johnny Ka or whatever. Which like
I'm surprised you remembered all those.
Yep. Well, I just read two of them in this. But so like I guess I always kind of read like the Sue and the whatever as their last names, but that's not right. It's just
no, it's just that they're Kryptonians.
Yeah. Well, but L is his last name, right?
Yeah, but Ken is Ken, so he didn't do it right.
Whatever. Yeah. And so, yeah. But then Steppenwolf goes to heaven.
Haven.
Oh, I'm sorry. Which
fraud.
Fake fan, I know. But yeah, which is this the Batcave?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
And again, by the way, I love reminder. This was made by ants, first of all, which is pretty badass. And two, Haven. Haven is their way. This like giant base where we're just gonna spy on every human being or every echidna. This is here so that people don't use technology.
Yep.
Oh, well, I mean, you gotta fight fire with fire after all.
Yeah, we're not massive hypocrites. Also, this is the second time that I can remember in Archie where someone makes a reference to making clothes out of Vector's skin. Because I want to say in Return to Angel Island, someone calls him Suitcase Face. And then in this, they go, they can have my hide to make Kragot's personal luggage if they want. Is this a thing that happens in this world? Do like crocodiles?
They just want to skin Vector.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, and so I jumped the gun a bit on them stealing the robes. It doesn't matter. The point is that the Chaotix, they get in a fight and the forest is burning down, and then a bunch of people are running away. So they're on Angel Island, right?
Yeah, people live on Angel Island.
What?
Yeah.
Like people. Not like critters, like flickies, or actual people, like sentient people live on Angel Island.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's been a thing for a while now, at least in the comic. Because I mean, it's a thing I actually like, because like the whole thing with like Knuckles, right, is he guards the Angel Island, and it's like, sure, there's like little animals on it, right? But like Knuckles, just like, if you don't want to worry about it, just like drop it and then like put the Master Emerald in your butt, like you can do, and just move on. But like the reason like I like that in Archie, the reason like you can't just drop Angel Island is like people live here. I mean, because like remember, dude, like the Chaotix showed up. They didn't like fly here. They live on Angel Island.
They live on Angel Island?
Yeah.
I thought they just
How do you think they got here?
I thought I thought, how does Knuckles get here?
He lives here.
But he's left before.
Yeah, because he can fly.
Charmy can fly.
Yeah, he leaves sometimes.
Point simply being, okay. How did everyone else get here? How did they get here?
They've lived here. What do you mean?
It was radioactive slag, and that was why everyone had to leave. How did they get up here?
Well, here's the thing. So that is a giant plot hole. Flynn actually answers this, which is that over time, they started putting like they started bringing more animals onto Angel Island to like live here, which is cool because it's the Guardians, because there's like 50 of them.
Okay, they just needed friends.
Yeah, well, because like the whole island is supposed to like be habitable. Like it's not just like Echidna sanctuary. It's supposed to be like other people live here too. Because remember, the dingoes live here, our best friends. But yeah, no, other people live here. Also, like one of the people up here is, you can see, Renfield Rodent. and he just like flew here. So some of these people I think like moved here.
Yeah, because he's a bougie bastard. He can just
yeah, he's like a bad guy. But yeah, no, Mighty got here because he like found the island and climbed up here. SBO lives here because the chameleons live on Angel Island in Rainbow Valley, which they mention. And then Charmy came here because he left his home, which is on Mobius. And then Vector flew here with a bicycle had like a helicopter pad strapped to it. So now you know.
Yep.
So now, what does now there's a giant forest fire? Tell me, pray tell, how do they get out of this mess?
Yeah. How do I? So in Knuckles, the Echidna number 3, they they. Give me a sec.
I love that that's what broke you, though. It wasn't like Echidna society politics. It's just like, wait, people live on Angel Island?
They're not supposed to be here! They're not supposed to be here! It's not right!
You're supposed to be radioactive slag!
They are. Also, there's a bomb dangerously close to that fire.
Yeah.
Actually, okay, wait, hold on. How is he there? How is the bomb there?
He walked here.
So aren't the bombs Eggman robots?
Yeah, but no, well, they're good guys right now. Because, oh yeah, I forgot they went to Angel Island. Yeah, no, they were here before because in the Knuckles Chaotix issue, Heavy and Bomb showed up and they're like, yeah, we worked for Eggman, but we decided not to. We're good guys now. So yeah, they just chill on Angel Island too. They live here.
So anyway, then Mighty traps all these poor people right next to the fire.
I love that. That's the plan.
That's the plan. I actually, again, audience, I cannot stress enough how little of this I internalized. What is the plan here?
So the plan is don't run towards us. Because like the Dark Legion's like behind them. So they're like, run to the right. And they're like, fuck, we're gonna die. Knuckles is trying to kill us.
Yeah, because they have Mighty knock a tree over in the way of these poor people who are running away from this fire. and then Vector plays Sonic Boom, the song from Sonic CD, out of his headphones, and that blows back the fire onto the Dark Legion,
which is insane.
And then so here's the question: is Vector always listening to music?
I think so.
So how does he ever hear anyone?
He's got really good hearing with his non-ears.
I guess.
By the way, I do think it's funny that Bowlers brought this back, because if you remember in when Sonic comes home, they use Vector's speakers to blow away the Eggman army. I
remember because that was their excuse for him getting new headphones. It was fun.
Yeah. He must have got really stories. He must have got really shitty ones because he never does this again.
Yeah. Remember Good Stories, Ian? I remember Good Stories. Remember when we talked about Good Stories?
What? Come on.
And then Charmy is really tiny for no reason.
Yes.
Yeah, this is where you said they had to say that he had the power of size alteration just because.
Yeah, because when they made Knuckles Chaotix and stuff, they like obviously in the game he's like very tiny. So they just thought, oh, he's tiny. But then like as the series goes on, it's like, oh, he's bigger. It's like, oh, I was just in flight mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so.
Sure you were.
Yeah. Yep. So then someone pulls a gun out in a Senate meeting. He just stops. So Steppenwolf comes in, right? He's like, guys, we gotta figure this shit out. This guy leaps over the banister, pulls out a gun, and Steppenwolf's like, do it, you won't.
Yeah, you won't, bitch. And he's like, I'm not worthy.
It's like, who are these people?
And then Steppenwolf goes, if you're not, then who is?
Yep.
And basically he tells the council that like, hey, you know, there are people too. We need to like bro it out and like come to a peaceful solution. And they say Godspeed.
Yep. Shouldn't they say like Walker's
No.
speed or okay.
Next.
So then, God, we are only halfway through this issue. Fuck. But then Ant-Man, what's his name? Archimedes goes, leaves Locke and goes to the Chaotix, and Knuckles hops up on stage. And he's like, Kragon, or whatever your name is, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. Then Steppenwolf goes to Cyclops, and he's like, let's not fight, but I guess we'll fight because you're trying to shoot me. And it's like, Maneker. Yep. And so then they fight, and Maneker. Okay, what? So Steppenwolf uses his swirly chaos powers to send them all away.
Yeah, into the Twilight Cage, or the.
This
Twilight
is where he
Zone.
sends them into the Twilight Cage.
Yeah, he sends them into the Twilight Zone because they're bad, so they're gone forever now.
This is the scene where he sends them into the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, where he like does a little swirly thing and puts them in a vortex.
Wait, so you're telling me that all of the fucking shit that we're about to see for literal decades with the Echidnas and Julie Sue and the Dark Legion all spanned from this one like fucking Trump rally that was happening, where he was just like, hey,
you know what? Everyone goes to hell. Fuck you.
But it doesn't even look like there's that many people. How did they reproduce? How did they last that long? Like,
it's also just funny too, because like, again, the whole framing is he's like, you know what? Like, there are people, we can like reason with them. And then because like one of them tries to shoot, and then he's like, oh, like one of, it was one of your guys. So then like, obviously things are escalating, and he realized like, oh, it's my cousin. And so when he realizes, oh, it's my cousin, his first thought isn't, oh, now I really want to try to help these people. Instead, he's like, nope, go to hell. He just sends them all away.
Yeah.
Some of these people just wanted to have a TV, bro.
He's wanted to have his Genesis, man.
He just wanted foosball night.
Yeah, well, fuck you and your foosball night.
Yeah. So now here's the thing, right? The comic.
Do you think foosball guy was there?
Do what?
Do you think foosball guy was there in the?
Dude, I hope so. I hope he got sent to hell because he wanted to play foosball.
Oh god.
But here's the thing: the comic will address this one day, and I don't even mean like Bowlers or Flynn. Eventually, like Ken does start like kind of breaking down the dynamics of like how this all works. But yeah, it really is kind of fucked that like that he just showed up and he's like, you know what, you're all banished forever. Bye. Literally just because one of them, like obviously like some of them were, if we go earlier, they were like raiding the city, but it's just like not all of these people, I would assume, are like fucking monsters.
Yeah, I mean, some of these people were it was probably like some pyramid scheme shit where like fucking Randy was like, hey, dude, you just come to the meeting with me. Like, I'll be your
all you gotta
boss.
do is wear the cloak. And he's like, oh, he was like, this was pretty interesting. And then he gets fucking banished to hell.
Like, you get your cloak, and then I'll be like your boss. But then you get like 3 other people under you, and you'll be like their boss. And then those guys will each get 3 people.
I mean, they literally have a system for that, which is that they're called commissars. So, like, it's like, I'll become a commissar, and you get like your little Legion flunkies, and then you'll rise to the ranks of commissar, and then it'll be great.
I like the idea that Dark Legion is just a pyramid scheme.
Well, and it works too, because it's like, and it's all tied down by the man. If they didn't take our stuff, we wouldn't have to create it in the first place, which is like literally true. So
yeah. But so anyway, then they go and they're fighting. The Knuckles is fighting Claw. Whatever. And, Locke is meditating. And
no, I love. So he sees Knuckles is like in danger, and I love. He goes, now more so because of my son. I am reminded of my duties and the link of the Guardian with the Emerald.
Yep.
He's like, wait, maybe I should help.
Maybe. But so yeah, and then can the Batcave just do anything?
It's not really the Batcave in particular. This time he's using chaos magic.
Oh, he's using chaos magic?
Yeah, because you can see behind him there's like the Emerald, because he's like, I have a link with the Emerald. So like he's using the Chaos Force to like turn off their guns or whatever.
Okay, sure.
Now the Batcave can do things, because in the original Knuckles miniseries, he uses the Batcave to like create like an oasis in the desert, which it never is able to do again. So I have to imagine it was like there all along, and he like opened it from like a hatch or something. But the Batcave can do a bunch of crazy shit. So
Yeah. So then, so they're fighting. Is there anything of note here that you want to call out?
no, Knuckles didn't do anything. The end.
Yep. And then we get Enerjack Citadel of Darkness. That wasn't in this. So
It's pretty cool looking.
It's a cool looking place. It looks kind of like a fish. But
yeah. By the way, I really love the not the cover, but right after it, they have like some really wicked art of like the echidnas and stuff, and like these really like sketchy designs. I think those look really cool.
Yes, I agree.
All right, we made it to that one.
Yep, we have 3 more people. So Knuckles the Echidna number 4. This one's just called Knuckles the Echidna Lost Paradise, part 1 of 3. Having survived his initial encounter with the Dark Legion, a group of technologically advanced Echidna renegades, Knuckles begins to take a greater interest in his history, his heritage, and its accompanying responsibilities. Since learning that his ancestors were responsible for saving the floating island from certain disaster, and some responsible for placing both it and their people in the greatest of jeopardy, Knuckles has begun to question what he has been taught, now seeks the rarest of all treasures, the truth! It's out there somewhere, to be found in places one would never suspect.
Under the stream. Down here is better.
Yeah, we get to see Vector's feet. So
that was glorious. You're right.
Yeah. Wait, actually, okay, so he's wearing shoes when he jumps out of the water.
Yeah, which means he like grabbed them and like put them on while he was down there. Like, I'm gonna fucking kill this guy.
I guess, but so Vector he's swimming around, and then, which is interesting. We never really see Vector swim, but like he is a crocodile.
He is a crocodigator,
so he should do that.
Apparently he listens to music, so it's waterproof too.
Huh? Yeah. Did they have waterproof headphones back in the 1990s?
They do when you have cool Echidna technology.
Did the Echidnas make his headphones?
I would like to believe so.
I would like to believe so too. And then so he sees
a Just world that would be true.
That would be. But he sees a Dark Legionnaire just hanging out, and he's like, I'm gonna kill this guy. But then he gets
guy, you say.
Well, we'll get there. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yeah, and then he gets his ass kicked.
Yes.
And then we see Knuckles is meditating, and this person tries to sneak up and tase him. And then Knuckles lays out this person, gets a hold of him, pulls off the mask, and but wait, it's a girl.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but so yeah, this is where we meet Julie Sue, fan favorite character. Not ironically, like people actually like her, including us. She's all right in this. Okay, so
she certainly is here.
Yeah. So okay, so she says something. So she's okay. So we find out she was a member of the Dark Legion.
Yeah.
Dark Legion base blew up. She tried to follow Knuckles, but she got like sidetracked because the place was blown up. And then she says, the funny thing is, I wanted to rejoin the Legion, but I just can't. It's been like someone forcing their will over mine. Ian? Yeah. What is this?
Oh, you don't know about the Soul Touch?
Oh, this is the Soul Touch.
Yeah, the whole idea is that she's like, man, that boy is fine, and I don't know why. There you go.
You're telling me that throughout the entire rest of the series. So I always knew Julie Sue used to be Dark Legion, but I assumed it was like I don't know, what's a good example? I'll say like a Zuko thing from Avatar. I've been watching Avatar where like they fight for a bit and then they're buddies. And then eventually they become more than buddies. No, you're telling me that she started as Dark Legion and that her entire motivation for not being Dark Legion was some mystical, magical Echidna soulmate bullshit, and she just immediately drops all of her family history just because she wants to fuck Knuckles?
It's very true, but she doesn't. But the drama comes from the fact that she doesn't realize she wants to fuck Knuckles.
No.
It was love at first sight, you know.
This feels wrong. This feels gross and wrong. Because she's like, it's like, because again, she literally says, someone is forcing their will over mine. So this Soul Touch shit.
Yeah, her libido.
God damn it, Ian. So this Soul Touch shit, it's just, she just So she's just like, oh well, I had like a family and I was part of the Legion.
Well, she did. Okay, well, to be fair, now Ken will clarify that she had like nobody she cared about. Because her literal siblings are Nazis who like brainwashed her into believing she didn't have a family. So she literally got her mind wiped. So as far as she knows, she's just like a goon.
Okay.
So it's not like the only thing she abandoned was being a Nazi. So pretty good.
That's good. That's good.
There are worse reasons to abandon being a Nazi, and I think wanting to kiss a boy is a pretty good one.
Yep. Again, the fact that they have to, but again, the fact that there's like a mystical force that is making it so she has to want to kiss this boy feels really weird.
If it makes you feel better, Ken clarifies very clearly, like, I mean, as you can probably tell, Knuckles' mom and dad are not together, right? Mm-hmm. So it is not supposed to be like a mystical force is in like you are literally brainwashed. It is supposed to be like the Echidna form of like, oh, love at first sight, like you're infatuated, like it's your soulmate or whatever. But obviously you have to like I mean, they literally say it's like, well, if you and it's not in this story, but later he's like, well, if you and mom were soul touch mates, why aren't you together? And he goes, well, I guess even the fated relationships take work. So like it's not supposed to be like she's literally like has no autonomy. It's just that she's fucking horny. All right, deal with it.
I will say, okay, for all my ranting and screaming a second ago, it's a lot better than what I thought it was, because again, last issue we saw Locke like controlling stuff, and I thought it was like the Bat Cave going in and like overriding the technology. And so we see here Julie Sue is a cyborg. So I thought what was happening might be that Locke was like basically hacking her brain and making her be nice to his son.
That would be awesome.
That would not be awesome.
No, he's not. He is not okay with this.
So that's good. Well, that was part of the confusing thing, is that Locke does not seem to want to be a part of this. But okay, yeah. But then the Chaotix show up, and again, it's just so sudden. She's just like, yeah, I guess I'm part of the Chaotix now. I guess. So she takes off her clothes. And,
they sure do draw it like she's stripping.
Yeah. Yep. But so. Yeah, and then Knuckles says
his iconic line, I'm sure if we give her enough rope, she's bound to hang herself. Which, is a real saying, but it's very funny when you have it with the idea of like, you're a girl? What? Not a boy? Like,
kill yourself.
Kill yourself, idiot.
Anyway.
And then you have Locke being an old man, being nothing ever prepared me for Laura Lay either.
Yeah. Okay. So does he have like a soul touch sense that's telling him that that's what's happening?
Yes. He's just like, well, I mean, he's just like, boy, girl. Oh shit, they're gonna kiss.
Yep. Yeah. But so then Knuckles and Julie Sue are bickering, and then they fall into Echidnaville.
Yes.
And they meet Knuckles' mom. Is that here? Yes. And then she's like, never mind.
It's really sad because he's like, I thought you were dead. It's like, is that what your dad said? It's like, well, no, he just said you were like gone, and I kind of filled in the blanks.
Yep.
Which is not good.
Nope. Oh my god, I forgot to mention. At some point, Knuckles gets in Julie Sue's face, and he goes like, oh god, I want to read it in context. Here we are. And where's the rest of Kragon's thugs? Female.
I felt really bad because there was this one YouTuber, and she was reading this comic, and she got to that line. She goes, ugh, I don't like that.
I don't like it either.
It's like what the fuck?
Well, as I said, this comic does not like its women very much.
To be as good faith as possible, I think what it's supposed to be is like boys and girls living together. It's like cats and dogs living together. You just can't understand each other. Like, I think it comes from like that place of just like women and men, right? But it comes off so fucking bad because again, he's just like, where's the thugs? Female. It's like, Knuckles, why?
It's amazing. Also, at some point, I think it's Vector calls her a witch. We all know what he wanted to say.
They all hate her.
Yeah.
And
Also,
by the way, this is the start of their rivalry that'll last the entire series.
yep, yep. Then at some point, Knuckles calls SBO SB.
Yeah, he says that a few times.
So is the Chaotix just like some weird like polycule situation? Like what?
They're just they're yeah.
But yeah, so then they get
Sue, I mean, wouldn't you want to make sure that like the additions are good? That's why they're not, down with Julie Sue yet,
so anyway,
We've never had a girl here before.
Then they go back to Kidnopolis. There's a big statue of someone.
By the way, we come back to Echidnapolis. Now remember, this is the anti-technology city, and the first thing we see is like fucking spaceships from Star Wars flying around.
I guess they got over that whole anti-technology
They got
thing.
over it, but the Dark Legion had to go.
Yeah. So the Dark Legion was just right. They were just right. They were like, oh man, maybe those guys had a point. Should we like pull them out of hell? Nah,
if they weren't so cringe about it.
Anyway, Knuckles the Echidna, number 5.
They also get arrested by the police.
Yeah. Police show up. They're like, you all come with us. Okay, so the first page of this is pretty funny, and
yes, I do like this.
So Knuckles' dad is talking to who's this, Aether? Is he still Aether?
No, this is his dad's Saber.
Sure. So he's talking to Saber.
You say that like I'm lying to you.
Ian, you could be lying to me about all of this. I have no way to confirm it.
You could have literally made this comic up and sent it to me.
You know what? That would be dedication, but yeah, you could have. So he's like, he's like, oh man, what do you think? Wait, who was his mom's Lorelei?
Lorelei, yeah.
But he like, what could Lorelei be telling him about me? And Saber goes like, oh well, we all play, and he's like, oh, is that so? So then what's she telling him? He goes, why would I know? But they ruin it because if they just left it out, well, how would I know? Perfect punchline. But then the next page they trail it over into, I don't understand her any more than I did my beloved Jenna. Which first
women,
of all,
right?
First of all, women, am I right? Second of all, you already broke the naming convention. You already broke it. This is the 5th issue. Anyway,
I mean, Jenna hits you like a storm, dude. Like she doesn't even have a second name. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yep.
And they're like, well, welcome to the police station.
Oh, okay. I forgot. There was a single good line of dialogue in issue 4 where Julie Sue asks Archimedes, like, Knuckles is like being a piss baby. And Julie Sue is like, is he always like this? And Archimedes goes, he's actually gotten better.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. But so, yeah, then the Echidnas. I will say, at least they're making the Echidnas different colors now. I appreciate that.
Well, here's the thing. I think you're reading from the Sonic archives or the Knuckles archives, where they actually recolored some of them, so they might also be red in the original.
Oh, of course. Silly me.
Remington, the main cop guy, that is his correct color, though. But that's because he's a main character, so.
Yeah. Well, that didn't stop them from other Echidnas just being Knuckles but blank. So
true.
Yes. Then we meet a General Striker who's a big dingo boy.
Yes.
Okay. So then Knuckles meets his like 7 great grandfather.
Yeah.
And then we just get a long exposition dump where I'm gonna be frank with you, Ian. I tuned out about 2 pages in. So
okay, so you want me to tell you the recap?
Please, God, yes.
Okay. So the way this worked is that a long time ago, so whenever the Echidnas like lifted Angel Island, obviously there were a bunch of other animals that like lived on the island too. So one of the people that came up was the dingoes. And so the dingoes were like, bro, the Echidnas, they got like cool tech over there. Let's steal that shit. And so like they basically were in war with the Echidnas because they're like a militarized society. And then so basically like the Echidnas and the dingoes would go back and forth. And eventually the dingoes stole the Echidnas nukes. I don't know why we have these, but we stole their nukes. And they were like, yeah, fire. And so they were like, fuck. So how do we like survive this? And so they created something called the hyperzone projector. And what they did was they took the dingoes and they took the echidnas and they put them in 2 separate pocket dimensions on Angel Island. And now, because of Endgame, where Robotnik used the Ultimate Annihilator, you know how like he shot Knothole and that put it like an hour in the future or whatever, like 30 minutes or whatever. Well, since he like shot it and it like exploded, it also affected like all of Mobius. And so now the pocket dimensions that were created are breaking down because of Robotnik. And now, even though like he's dead, like it's from like the weapon. And so now the dingoes are seeing the echidnas and the echidnas are seeing the dingoes because their 2 alternate realities are snapping back into place into the main reality, which is where we are. And so therefore it's going to be Armageddon. And so Hawking is like, well, echidnas or dingoes? Easy. And so he makes it to where the echidna city survives and the dingoes are now homeless and have to live with us.
Okay.
Now, one of the funniest parts, though, is that there's a part where Hawking is talking about the dingoes. I want to quote what he says. Let's see. He says,
Well, first of all, can we say this on YouTube without getting demonetized?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to read from him directly.
Okay.
He goes, you have to understand, the dingoes were warlike because that's how they survived. Okay. They seem to grasp technology pretty well. So basically he's saying like, yeah, like this is just kind of how they are because like that's how they were raised or whatever. He's like, well, I don't know. It seems like they're kind of smart. Like they can understand. And then Hawking, he just fucking goes, comprehend it? Yes, but they weren't innovators. They couldn't conceptualize. They could only copy and adapt and learn from others. All they could see was echidna society and something they wanted, never stopping to think what they would do with the technology once they stole it. The results nearly prevent. And then he goes on. So basically he's like, bro, them dingoes, idiots.
Yeah, if y'all couldn't tell, some of the echidnas are a smidge racist.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, right? At this point in the story, the dingoes are just kind of portrayed as like Nazis, like they're literally like rounding up the echidnas because they think they're under attack. And so like they're like, oh shit, like blah blah blah, and they're like warlike society or whatever. But as the comic is gonna go on, the dingoes, as we saw at the end of the story, they lost their homes. And so therefore they are going to be homeless now. And we're going to be dealing with that in later stories, not covered today. But going back to this issue, when you're reading the first time, you might just be like, yeah, like the dingoes, like, right. They're just like monster characters. But no, they're going to be treated as people. So Hawking might be a smidge racist.
Yep. But so the idea is that the worlds are coming together. The 2 dimensions are going to smash into each other. It's going to be real bad. We got to do something about it.
Yes. And also I want to clarify. This is not something that's lost on Ken Penders because he has said that in his original versions of the story, he wanted to imply that Angel Island, like some of like the city they built, was not just built by the echidnas, but dingo slave labor.
Mm-hmm.
So Ken knows. He's just teaching the kiddos.
Which I'm sure that would have been treated with all of the grace and care that such a sensitive subject like that entails.
Yeah, it would have been crunch time, folks. We would have been getting down to it.
Yep. But so then shit's going down. The realities emerge. But wait, Leia's been kidnapped by dingoes. Oh no.
So we gotta save her.
We have to save her.
Savor this moment. Good golly, Miss Molly, says Mighty.
Yep. Yeah.
By the way, I love SBO up there, just on his computer in his little invisible house.
Yeah, it's pretty great. How does that work?
Ninjas.
Okay. I also love that Knuckles' grandpa has magic floating wheelchair powers.
He does. He's got chaos powers too.
Yeah, because he like falls out of his wheelchair and he just like whoop, back into
back to normal. By the way, isn't that like a Echidna statue, like a Superman reference?
I mean, it could be. Superman does have a statue that was made in his honor after he fought Doomsday in the comics.
I'm trying to think, like, isn't there like a Krypton statue where like they're holding up like?
Oh yes. In the Fortress of Solitude, yeah.
I think that's what that's based off.
Yeah, I know because it's in. I'm not the biggest Superman fan, but I remember that from the For the Man Who Has Everything episode of Justice League. You ever see that episode? It's a good episode.
Yeah, I have seen that. And now we fight Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just need to bring your attention to how fucking funny this Echidna on this splash page on the far right looks. Look at this fucking
He's so
what?
upset.
Like it's just something about their design, how like decrepit they look, the way the hair is just like plopped onto their head, like just
Like a
I
mop.
cannot describe it. It's just so funny. Like
They're just, well, they don't even seem like they're scared. They're just like, oh fuck, this sucks.
yeah. Yeah, but so then Knuckles barges in, he beats up the dingoes, saves his mom. And I mean, do I have any notes for this? Hold on.
He says, not swine, Echidna. There's not an ounce of pork on my bod.
That was fun. My first note for this is just one more fucking issue. Yeah, and then they reference the Omega Wave, which I believe is implied to be the Ultimate Annihilator going off. That's cool. Yeah, and so then Knuckles is with his mom, and we get a brief interaction between them where he's like, look, lady, I don't know what to tell you. This is weird. Like, and she cries and she's sad because she's like, yeah, your dad was not great. But we don't, they, nope. Yep. But anyway, not that that's a story for another time.
Yes.
But so, yeah. So then the dingoes and the echidnas, they poof into the streets. Ian, what happens? I again, like I said, I don't really understand a lot of what happens in this issue.
So yeah, like the dingoes and the echidnas are like blipping into each other's reality. And so like basically, and then also like there's some echidnas who are like gonna get publicly executed. And so then like Knuckles and them save them. And then basically they're like, all right, everyone needs to like get underground. So that like, because I guess that will like keep you safe from like the transfer or whatever. So he goes and he meets the boss Striker and he puts on his power glove and they fight. They beat him up and then they're like, we need to get downstairs. So they get downstairs and then Hawking's like, all right, time to pick which world survives. And so he makes sure that the Echidna's world survives. Now the dingoes are homeless. And then it's like, oh, but he had to use like a bunch of his chaos power to like do it. So now Hawking is presumed dead. We will find out what happened to him after that, and then Knuckles takes his hat.
Yeah, that was cool. I like the hat.
Yeah, wonder where that's from.
I couldn't tell you.
It's from the OVA.
I know, Ian.
Oh, I thought you were stupid. Sorry.
Wow. Jeez.
You know, my big Echidna brain, you know, your dumb dingo brain. I just thought I needed to explain it to you.
Ian. It's like we're actually gonna get in trouble for this.
You can't say that about the dingoes, dude. What the fuck?
Okay.
Yeah,
I have to ask: are there any? Do they make up any like dingo slurs in this?
I don't think so. I think mostly it's just like general insults of like, okay, oh, you're busy boys or whatever. But then like, you know, Knuckles talks about like the echidnas and stuff.
I just remember in like Teen Titans how they called like Starfire a Trockie. I didn't know if they had like anything like that here for the dingoes. Oh
no, I would love that, but I don't think so. I don't think Ken was allowed to be as real as, you know, he would have liked to be.
Really, would you love if they incorporated racial slurs into this Sonic comic, Ian? Would you have loved that?
Absolutely. Dude, if this comic, if it could just get as like problematic as possible, dude, they quote the Holocaust poem. All right, they could do anything.
That's fair, completely fair.
How that was even allowed.
But yeah, so like you said,
that's a tale for another day.
Yeah, the echidnas and the dingoes, they pop into the street, and I like that Knuckles is like, look, if any of you start fighting, I'll just beat you all up. Shut up, everyone, shut up. Like, and he's like, well, I guess whatever. And he puts the hat on, and yep, that's Knuckles.
Ba-dum-ba. You know, it's a shame it got canceled. You know, there weren't any more stories, but you know.
Yeah. Well, audience, if you want to talk about this, us to talk about this more, start your own fucking podcast.
What? We're not continuing.
Look. If the people demand it, I'm not like Ian. I care about what you guys think. If the people demand it, we can come back. Maybe we could talk about that initial Knuckles miniseries. Maybe if there's like specific parts of this that people think would be fun, maybe once we get into more like the Echidna stuff in Flynn's run, it could be fun to go back. But for right now, this fucking sucks.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, like, yeah, overall, give your overall thoughts. Like, yeah.
Here's the thing. On the one hand, I hated this, but on the other, I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with it, right? Like, there's something there, but it's again, it's like I am reading Knuckles the Echidna. Everything here, simply put, this should all be through the eyes of Knuckles the Echidna. It should all be like, we should be discovering this weird, wacky shit with Knuckles. Knuckles should not just be like constantly clueless as we are bombarded with information about his society. Because let's be frank, who gives a shit about his society? Who cares about Dimitri and Steppenwolf and Edmund and all these other indistinguishable characters? Like, we're doing all that at the cost of our main characters. Like, again, I ask you, Ian, what did Knuckles do in this?
Yeah, the most he does is like try to save the dingoes by like beating up Stryker. And it's like, that's fine, but that's like one scene at the end of like 3 issues that basically feel like 5 issues, Yeah. So no, I mean you're absolutely right. Like, the thing that the Knuckles comic, it just seems like Ken really thought like this lore was like super fascinating, and clearly a lot of people agreed because obviously it kept going. But just like he really, I think, lost the plot, which is like, I think maybe he thought that just like Knuckles, the thing we're supposed to relate to is the idea of like this kid who just wants to learn about the world and how big the world is. And I think that's like what Ken, by the end of his run, like with 25, 30 years later, is like, it's the idea of like, oh, the world is so big and like, you don't know where your place is in it. And, and stuff like that. And just kind of Knuckles, like, characters will constantly tell him like, oh, it's just, you're just not ready to learn or whatever. And so I think that's what it's supposed to simulate. Just like, the world is complex, and you're like Knuckles, but as a story, that's not really that engaging because he hasn't done that in like a compelling way. And it just feels like Knuckles is getting put to the side so that we can just learn history. But that history doesn't really affect Knuckles because he doesn't really have any like personal stake in it outside of his family. And then when we get to his family, like we meet his mom, it's like, oh, that's something I could care about. But instead, he just saves his mom, and then it's like, oh, we'll save that discussion for another time. And it's like, so every time they have these like character things going on, it kind of gets brushed aside, Yeah. And so it feels very overwhelming in a negative way, I would say.
When does he turn green?
That is not for a very long time. That's in like that's an issue. That's in like the 90s.
This only got 32 issues, though.
Well, I mean, like the main comic.
Oh, right. When this got canceled and they folded the Knuckles.
Yeah, and then they just made it the Perpetual B stories.
Yeah. Yeah. But, so, Ian, I ask you, how much of this do you think is going to make it into the show?
Well, obviously, Grandfather Hawking's hat has made it into the show, and that's where it came from, as we know.
That's true.
So.
Okay. Better question. What from this would you want to see in the show? If you could take one element of this and put it into the show, and it can't be like the Chaotix, no namby-pamby bullshit, Ian. What, like, from this story that originated from this story? No Julie Sue either. I know you, fucking Ian. Don't try and trick me. What would you want to see in the Knuckles show?
I actually do think it would be kind of funny to bring like Archimedes, like an Australian fire-breathing teleporting ant, being like, Knuckles, we gotta go to Denny's. I think that could be fun.
Yeah, the sad thing is, I could totally see that.
Yeah, like I think that could be fun. So I would bring Archimedes.
I mean, here's the thing. Like I said, there's a lot of interesting ideas in this. Like the Dark Legion, it'd be cool to see them. Obviously that's a whole other thing, though. Like that's not something you just throw in a show. Well, you could have it as like a subplot. You could have like some background. Like,
I mean, we're getting the Flames of Disaster in the Knuckles show. What are you talking about?
Shut up, Ian. But, yeah, I guess that's my answer. Is the the Dark Legion, finding out like there was a whole other sect of Echidna society who was like high tech and cool. So then Ken Penders can sue Sega for stealing his ideas a second time.
And then we'll never get Sonic 3, and we won't get Shadow. That's what he wants. That's what Silver Ace
Right?
said.
No, no, that's how I said. That's how I said.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
No.
All right. Anything else?
Well, when we return, audience, we lost an episode. So that's why. I guess when we return, we'll be talking about the Knuckles show. So everyone, be excited for that. That'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
But then after that, originally I was gonna poll you guys on it, but it doesn't matter. We'll just do it and we'll see what happens. We're gonna be doing IDW episodes because
yes,
I'll explain. I think I might release like an update video explaining why like Eggman Empire isn't coming out for like a month and a half. So I'll talk about it more there. But yeah, so be on the lookout for that. We'll be talking about whatever came out after issue 50, a couple arcs. So, but yeah, before that, it'll be the Knuckles show. Can be a good time. But until then, everyone, Ian, plug your shit.
I'm Ian Waffles. You can find me on Ian Waffles on YouTube and Twitter. Bye.
Wait, but what about my shit?
Oh, oops. Yeah, watch Silver Race. He's cool.
I'm here, and I'm on Twitter at SilverRace01. And I swear to God, this is going to be on Spotify soon. Anyway, bye.
Bye.